Welcome to Cybomen. My name's Adam, and I'm here today with Jeffrey, and this is our first ever video on our brand new YouTube channel. We are Cybomen, and we're going to do reviews and analysis of films that we love and try to present them in a new way to you. So I'm not even going to start with spoiler alerts because we go beyond spoiler alerts. So if you haven't seen these movies, we will spoil everything about them, but also show you how they're connected to real life and agendas that are operating in this world in which we live. So thank you for being here with me today, Jeffrey.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm a cinephile as well. I love movies, and this is a great opportunity to kick off with this movie as the Cybomen. You know, we are the original Cybomen, and so for cyborg men, I just think it's great. And this movie is going to really go into realms that far exceed any other kind of movie analysis that you've ever heard of before.
Right, and so we're starting off on our first movie is Ghost in the Shell. And we're going to be talking about the 2017 version. Now, Ghost in the Shell was directed by Rupert Sanders and written by Shirow Masamune based on the manga comic of the same name. And of course, before I get to the summary of the film, we have to do a shout out to the original Ghost in the Shell, which is an animated film that came out of the 90s. And this is an absolute fantastic animation. Back in those days, we had to watch animations because we didn't have the technology to do a live action film that's anywhere near all the science fiction concepts that they dive into. So thank you very much to Mamoru, Oshii, for making this amazing, life-changing film. And for the 2017 is a little different, but it's based on the animated film. And the summary is pretty interesting. I think just by reading that, you should pique your interest to watch the film. But it's about in the near future where Mira Killian, played by Scarlett Johansson, is the first of her kind, a human saved from a terrible terrorist attack who is cybernetically enhanced to be a perfect soldier devoted to stopping the world's most dangerous criminals, right? So it's a very movie sort of summary. Obviously, it's about much, much more than that. But yeah, I've been watching movies. Gosh, I've seen hundreds of thousands of movies, and I've been watching movies since I was in high school, and I had a passion for movies from the get-go. The first movie that really changed my life was John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, that's a whole nother story, but I've watched probably on average one movie a day since I was in my late teens. And so that adds up to a lot of movies. And in fact, I've even worked in the film industry on set for everything from my own projects to other amateur films, all the way up to when I was in London, England. I worked in the visual effects industry. And I have a credit on a film. So one of my goals in life when I was a kid was to have my name on the silver screen. And sure enough, I did it. Now, it wasn't on Ghost in the Shell or anything quite as epic as that. It was on Beverly Hills, Chihuahua. But hey, you know, that's also a very entertaining film. And just as an aside, something about me, I love Chihuahuas. But, you know, Jeffrey, what is it about films that really got your interest and changed your life?
I'm glad you asked. And I think this is a privileged opportunity to be part of this project with you, where we can break down movies. And for me, how I got started, it was very simple. It started off with Blockbuster Video and going to the movie theaters when I was a young boy. And, so later on in high school, I had a friend who worked in a movie theater. And sometimes, we'd go in, if there was nobody, they'd let us in. And sometimes when I couldn't afford it, they'd let me in as a gift. The manager would say it's okay every once in a while. And I just fell in love with the movie theaters. It's just a cool place, the snack food and the friends. And it just kept growing. And, this movie, Ghost in the Shell, I understand that there's the original anime in 1995, which blew me away. The first animated movie that really got to me was Transformers the movie. But the one that was more adult themed was Fist of the North Star. And then when I saw Ghost in the Shell, this was like an epic movie for me because, wow, they're covering all kinds of stuff. And I think the most interesting part about going to the movies is not just the entertainment value, but I was asking myself the questions: where do they get this stuff from? Where does this stuff come from? And unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot of information. And so after 20 plus years of being a cinephile and just loving the arts, I decided I want to do my own homework and become sort of like my own master of knowledge and deciphering capabilities of where do these movies come from? What are they based off of? What are some of the real life sources of the technology, the politics, the financing, all of it? And so this is just a fantastic opportunity to start off with Ghost in the Shell, because this is where I think, and you'll probably agree with me, Adam, where humanity is going. And we're going to try to break it down together. And so I just think it's a great team up. And we are, we are the Cybomen. And, and so I even used the term that we both got together, locutus of film. And some people will say, well, locutus, what's that all about? But we'll go into that in a moment. But is there anything else you wanted to say before we get going? Or
Absolutely. In 1995, the animated version of Ghost in the Shell was just so exciting, and there was nothing like it ever before. And it seems, even when I watched this 2017 version, as I watched it again a couple nights ago, I think I've seen it 4 times now. It's so off the wall sci-fi that, when you're watching it, it's just pure escapism, and you think how it's just out there, and there's no way that anything like this is, real life. This is just pure fantasy land, and because it's so far-fetched. I love movies that are like that. But, as we are moving forward into the 21st century and we're in this digital revolution, turns out that there's a whole lot was revealed to us in 1995 that we had no idea was coming. You got to remember, for people watching this that are millennials, or we grew up, we had to watch this on VHS, right? We didn't have computers to look up tidbits or trivia about the film, or we didn't have mobile phones even at all. We didn't even have pagers back then. So I guess in 95 we had pagers, but that was about it. We had pay phones. So putting it into a little bit of perspective, that it was so far-fetched, today, the live-action film with Scarlett Johansson is very well done graphically. It's artistic, and it's, again, easy to think that it's way outlandish and nothing about it is real. It's a fantasy sci-fi movie. But I think with the presentation that we have today, we can show you that it's a lot more real than you think. So I think this is a good time to explain to people why we are the locutus of film.
Yeah, let's keep going, because we're going to be talking about the connection points like world communism, the United Nations, the Agenda 2030, the connection of the real true corporates and the people behind Hollywood who help create these kinds of outcomes. I think even the original Ghost in the Shell was financed in London, by someone in London. I don't know who. But when we look at this first slide here, it says locutus of film. Locutus. Well, some people who've watched Star Trek, they'll say locutus. The only time I've ever heard that word was from Captain Picard. And so before we go to that, this is a truly fascinating deep dive. And we're doing this on July 31st, 2019, our launch point. But let's take a look at what locutus really is. As I mentioned, people will maybe associate it with Jean-Luc Picard or Captain Picard from the next generation of Star Trek. And so what's going to happen is the locutus is not just a Captain Picard term. It's actually a Latin word, and it is to speak or to talk. And so when we're speaking of film, we are the locutus of film. That's why we're the Cybomen. We're going to speak about the film Ghost in the Shell from 2017. Here's another example of what locutus means. It means to mention, to phrase, to say, to utter, to speak, to tell, and to talk. These are the different ways of interpreting locutus, the Latin word. And we're going to be speaking about this together. You know, one of the things I've always found, I ignored, I would say, the majority of my life until the last 13 years, is the beginning of the movie where they show all the movie houses and the distribution corporations and all that. You know, Reliance, I didn't know anything about it. Is that something you looked at, or is it something that I ignored it? I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
I do now, but absolutely, you know, the first many, many years of watching film, I didn't pay much attention at all. I think I first started having my eye on it with people like Peter Jackson, who had Wingnut Films, and also Ridley Scott. Forget the name of his production company, but it's this creepy crow that turns into a man in the shadows or whatever. It's just that kind of. It was visually interesting enough that I paid attention to it. But after the years, of course, now you have Paramount and Columbia and all these giant animations of coliseums and the stars that rotate around the female holding up the torch, and just it's so ensconced in symbolism that I do pay attention now.
Yeah, and it's something that I had to dig deep and to research, and I still don't have all the answers, but we're going to talk about some stuff that you and I have known for a while, and then we have a great expose on this. So Reliance Entertainment. Well, if you see that rising sun over the water and you see that red triangle, that triangle is a very, very well used symbol in the occult world, and I mean the hidden world, not just the people who are into the dark side or maybe satanic stuff. And I don't want to promote or discuss that part. I want to talk about the symbol, because a symbol can be anything. A stop sign can mean something in North America or Europe, and it doesn't mean anything somewhere else. So a symbol has a lot of power, but the triangle and the rising sun is very important. The rising sun is the dawn of the new day. It's basically a concept of world communism. It goes back thousands of years, and so this corporation, Reliance, is using the rising sun, the dawn of the new day, and the triangle. There's even a book that talks about it. If you've ever heard the term Illuminati, for the listeners out there, the Illuminati, the people who supposedly run the world, they use the triangle and the circle. And if you want to get more of a reference point, there's a book called The Fire in the Minds of Men, and there's a specific chapter that talks about the triangle and the circle and what they all really mean. But usually one of the symbols of representations is it represents the male. If the triangle is pointing up, it means male. Like in certain bathrooms in North America, not all, but some, especially in California, where Hollywood is and all that, if you go to the men's room, it'll be a triangle. If you go to the women's room, it'll be a circle on the door. And so this corporation knows what they're doing with symbolism. You just say, oh, it only lasts 3 seconds. It's not part of the movie. The reflection even has a meaning. And right. So it's just really fascinating.
And, of course, don't forget that Ghost in the Shell in the logo there's a triangle right there. You know, where it says "ghost in the shell" it's part of the poster.
Right. And even in the beginning of the movie, both the animated and the live action, is when she is being built, she floats up in the water. You see the reflection, her mirror image reflection as she floats up in the water when she's being built and into that liquid. Well, it's the same concept. People who understand these symbolic meanings of stuff, it's really, really powerful. So these companies, and by the way, these companies are all Asian. They're all Chinese. So a lot of people say, well, Hollywood's American. No, it's not anymore. It's actually in the hands of the Chinese. And the people who manage all this is actually the United Nations and the Vatican, but we're going to go into that. But here's some of the symbols that you see at the beginning of the movie that most people ignore. And there really isn't anybody out there who's prepared or in the position to talk about this kind of material. And look at the symbolism. Why would they choose a tree? And we're going to go into that a little bit later. Why would they choose the triangle and the rising sun? And so it's just really fascinating. But just the fact that most people don't know that China actually purchased the majority of Hollywood's filming houses. It's just really incredible.
Absolutely.
So in the beginning of the movie, we have a little bit of text, and I'll just read it out there. In the future, the line between human and machine is disappearing. Advancements in technology allows humans to enhance themselves with cybernetic parts. Well, you know, Adam, you and I could go on about this for hours, but is there anything you wanted to add before we go any further? Or?
Growing up, almost all of the science fiction that I was interested in had to do with cybernetic enhancement. And I think one of the interesting things is that as a youngster, I thought it was all really cool. You know, I was down with it, man. I would have cut my arm off and had a prosthetic limb put on right then and there if I'd have been given the option to do so. But now that it's kind of coming to light that this stuff is more real and real, we're getting closer and closer to actually being able to, at least if you have the money, you know, do this. It actually begs a very serious question, which I have a completely different thought process about now. I would not just rush into it. If I had the opportunity, I would, there's even a chance that I would say no. But, yeah. So, my generation really grew up in an era where there was no way that any of this would ever really happen. But of course now it's a little different. So it's interesting to wonder and contemplate how, you know, a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old boy feels about cybernetic enhancement today, you know, compared to the way that I felt about it when I was a youngster. But, you know, here we are. So we have to face a new set of questions.
Yeah, we're going to go into that. I agree with what you're saying. I love Transformers toys as a child. I love all the cartoons with the robots and all that. I thought it was great. But now today, what happens is that the technology that the government has, the military-industrial complex, it's about 40 to 70 years ahead of the public. So this is why we're doing this series, is we're going to expose and explore and go, like Adam said, go way beyond spoiler alerts. We're going to unlock a lot of hidden features that Hollywood's never talked about. And so this thing with the cybernetic parts and merging man and machine and blurring this line, here's an example of what Adam was talking about. You know, here is a legitimate or biological organelle, an organ, the brain, and it's being put into a cybernetic body. And it's just fascinating, this whole thing. But you know,
that's pure science fiction, man. That could never happen.
Well, here's an example from the Genetic Literacy Project, and this organization likes to promote this kind of stuff. So they always try to put a favorable view on cybernetics or anything that's altered or modified, GMO and that. So they favor this kind of trend. So this article is favorable to the cause. MIT Media Lab halts relationship with startup Nectome over storing their brains in the fatal brain uploads. So there's actually a company that you can upload your brain and your personality. Here it is, MIT Technology Review. A startup is pitching a mind uploading service, and basically you die in the process physically,
Yep.
but you are preserved, and then you can be possibly reinstated into a cybernetic environment, a digital environment, both. Who knows where it's going and down the
Mhm.
road. Your personality will be preserved.
Well, there's a interesting concept in this film because a lot of times when we talk about cybernetics, we're talking about a body that is, robotic, and there's electronics and stuff like that, which this movie is accurate to. But most of the times we think, well, the brain in that body will be also like an AI, right? It'll also be robotic. But what I love about this angle is that the best way to create a cybernetic organism is to actually use a human brain, because only the human brain can reason and intuit. They even talk about this in the movie. And I love that concept because you can see it in RoboCop 2, one of my favorite movies from the 20th century. And you can see it in the recent movie Alita, Battle Angel, which I thought was a great film. And
Oh yeah.
and it's a contrast, a distinct contrast between this idea where you're actually inserting a human brain because it's actually like a superior way to create this product. But it's also very creepy. And one thing that I wonder about, and of course the movie has a stark warning about this. Like, you see that brain right there in the photo, and it's like, MIT's been doing business with this company, whatever it's called. And it just, big surprise that it's 100% fatal for the body. But imagine all the macabre experiments that they must have worked on to get to this point. Imagine how far back this goes.
Yeah, and supposedly they were doing this kind of stuff since the 40s.
Oh, yeah.
They started with the transplanting dogs' heads in Russia, and I
Ugh.
think it's Dr. Carl White. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's Dr. Carl White. He is the doctor who did the first head transplant on monkeys, and he was acknowledged. I think as soon as he finished doing that transplant, the Pope wrote him at the time. I think it was in the 80s or 70s. I forget now. And reaches out. So whenever there's a major scientific super breakthrough, the Vatican always reaches out. The first guy who created synthetic life, Carl Venter, I think is his name, he was reached out within 36 hours of accomplishing synthetic life. He was reached out by the Vatican. So this macabre stuff, it's acknowledged by the highest powers on earth. And nobody really hears about it. They have one article that you read out of 10,000 in your newspaper, on your television, and then it's just drowned out by sports and everything else. But this stuff has been going on for decades. Like I said, this technology is 40 to 70 years ahead of what's in the public. So if the director of the movie was reading incessantly to be able to put together what I would consider a masterpiece
Mm-hmm.
in the animation, he must have been digging deep into, heavy duty scientific documentation and literature. It's just overwhelming. I personally think this is like scary stuff because this is real. It's not, just entertainment just for fun. This stuff's real. It's going to happen.
Yeah, and
And
back in the 80s and 90s, how do you get access to all these white papers or all this research? It probably had the old rappy tap tap knock on the door by this, the CIA or whatever. But yeah, no, it's sad to think what the early experiments must have done, and then go look at what the origins sounds to me. And we'll move on, but it sounds to me like this is Nazi party stuff. And then, isn't that a strange bedfellowship that you have when the Vatican is congratulating all these scientists, right?
It is. And, people will say, well, this is all fantasy. This is manga, manga, the Japanese comic books. Come on, guys, you're making this stuff up. You're just stretching a little too far.
You've seen too many movies, man.
Yeah, but you know what? This is the whole point of us as the Cybomen, is to say, take the movie that you enjoyed, or that if you didn't enjoy it, you were captivated by the concepts, but you didn't, the story wasn't reaching you as much, but you were fascinated by some of the aspects. Well, these aspects come from somewhere. It's not just the CIA. I mean, the CIA, they're sort of like a hub point to coordinate all the science, and so they can redirect it into different industries. Example, Hollywood. And this next slide here is an example of how they take the human body, the movements, the aspects, the ratios, the mathematics, the biology, and mathematizing it using mathematics, and then digitizing the entire process. How do you take an analog living being, analog, to digital? Sony Vaio, if you have a laptop, you look at the Sony Vaio logo, it's actually analog to digital. You see the wave with the dot, that actually represents analog. And the Vaio is digital, 1 and 0. So this is the kind of stuff that's going on. But here's a very dry example of how, stuff that would put us all to sleep. But this is where this is coming from. And here's going back to the movie at the beginning. We're still at the beginning here. We're just warming up. Hanka Robotics, funded by the government, is developing a military operative that will blur the line even further.
Blur the line.
That's right. And by transplanting a human brain into a fully synthetic body. Well, you need to digitize the human to be able to even remotely think about. This is not Hollywood, this sign. This is a legitimate, hardcore book, a handbook of digital human modeling. This is all digitized.
I can back this up with a bunch of stuff, because I know that most people will see in the news nowadays that they talk about this synthetic biology and all this alteration of the human body. And what's the excuse they use, right? Oh, we got to go to Mars.
Yeah.
And they know damn well that the human body is not capable of, doing operations in space. So this is the excuse that they're using.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And the thing is, to be able to go to space, to be able to digitize people, to be able to finance all this science, to be able to have the financing to create a movie like Ghost in the Shell, the animated version from London, and this 2017 version, I don't know where it was financing. You have to use a corporation. Well, here's a man who is actually a legitimate Colonel Charles Cades, deputy chief of the government section, and there's a real legitimate documentary called Reinventing Japan, and basically Japan is a corporation. He's saying that Japan is a police state. Okay, it's a police state. So this movie is based off of being a police state. And she is a military weapon, a military operative. So, and they're at the Department of Defense, at Section 9 headquarters. The people who are into the dark stuff, the people who worship Satan, all this stuff, they love trapezoids. And it's interesting how this, geometrically, a trapezoid is an irregularly shaped object, and so it keeps information in. It protects what's inside. It traps what's inside. And so their headquarters is a trapezoid. And most people don't know that. But this is the kind of stuff that literature has helped me understand from an outside perspective, because I don't participate in the satanic arena. But they use this commonly, and so here in the movie they're willing to show you an example of that. And the master corporation out there that's really overseeing that the 2017 version is trying to paint, maybe not necessarily the original animation, but the 2017 is trying to blend in at a very deep psychological, subconscious level the United Nations. You're going to say, well, I don't see the UN anywhere in the entire movie. Well, we're going to show you subliminal messagings, color embedded moments, and different kinds of things that we're going to explain to you. That you want to go to Mars, you want synthetic biology, you want incredible robotics. The only way you can get all that, to get people to organize in society, is not by talking to each other outside in the street, is you use a corporation. Well, this is the master corporation of the world today. It is the United Nations, and you have 193 members, and when you become a member of a club, you lose your rights. You have to follow the rules of the club. So even if you're in Europe, in Canada, in the United States, the moment you become a member of the United Nations, you become a less sovereign outfit, and so you become subservient to the master corporation of the United Nations.
I think we should point out to viewers who may not be aware, but if you go back to that UN flag, you'll see that that's a target on the world.
Yeah.
I don't see that as super cuddly and friendly. But
no.
for those who don't, it's like one of those things, you look at that flag and you're like, oh, yeah, that's the UN. Well, look closely. That's a target on the world.
Yeah, and it's like the world's been divided, and it's locked into this region, and we have its basic control, and it's surrounded by Caesar's wreath, a Roman Empire logo. Yeah. I mean, you can't, and you have to keep in mind that baby blue or UN blue is not a color that was used throughout the last several thousand years geopolitically. It's only been recent. So this is a clean color. If you're one of the rulers of the world and you have unlimited money, you want to pick a color that's never been used before, so you have a clean slate. It's not dirtied up by history. Oh, this color was used in this revolution and that revolution and this fight and this tragedy and this genocide. So UN blue is a clean slate. So nobody has history to think back on, oh my God, this in this century or in that country, we had all these problems with the people who flew this color. No, this color is new. So that's why they chose it. This is the highest masters of the world, geo-financial, ecclesiastical, made a concerted, and there's psychiatrists who are on the boards at the UN helped choose this color. Christopher something, I forget his last name, is a Canadian psychiatrist who was on the board, helped the process to move the UN to this direction, so the master corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the United States, even though the UN controls both parties, Republican and Democrat, the party of choice in the United States is the Democratic Party, and you can see why. And if you think that this kind of material is just a big stretch, and I don't know where you're getting this from, I painstakingly went through with Adam, and we looked at all this kind of material, and we're putting it together so you can see every movie that we're going to break down. You can see the true nature of where some of this stuff really comes from. And the fact that it's inverted here, the Pope with the UN and Mr. Moon with the Vatican's flag inverted, there's a reason for that. It's not by chance.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's running the show. And if you don't think so, you don't think that the Vatican's a corporation, you just think it's a place that you can get spiritual guidance. He's the boss. Here he is on the cover of Forbes magazine from Argentina, El Nuevo CEO. I mean, this is the boss of the master corporation. So ultimately, all the cybernetics, all the synthetic biology, it all falls under the master corporation, the Vatican, and the managing corporation to manage all this is the United Nations. So you have a new world pope. Wow.
Yeah, it's a new world order.
And here it is, artificial power and limits of artificial intelligence. You see the hand going with the cybernetic robotic hand? That's not by chance. That's the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. That's not Adam and Jeffrey's wild guess. You know, and they are building these kinds of military operatives today. You just don't know about it. Here's another scene in the movie where the whole background seems to be with a light blue hue to it. And there's the major. And corporatism, here it is. This is what I was talking about. Corporations, one of the first corporations that was understood by the public in the last several hundred years is called a corporation soul. SOLE, like the sole of your foot. But I'm not going to go into too much detail today. And I mentioned world communism with Adam, but here's the thing: if you communism and the Democratic Party and the United Nations are all connected to each other, and it's using corporatism. Well, corporatism is the Catholic social teachings in Christian democracy, and the corporation in the Roman Catholic Church. So the Vatican is a corporation. I showed you the Pope's the CEO. Forbes told you that, not me or Adam. And that fist there is a very well-known symbol that the clenched fist is for communism.
Right.
And so, people say, well, that's, communism and fascism aren't the same. They actually are. People of the world unite. And when you unite, you become a fasci, which is a bundle of sticks. You can break one stick, but if you take a bunch of sticks together and you make it into a bundle of sticks, that's a fasci. And so communism and fascism are actually different forms of the same thing. It's like two sides of a coin. And in the movie, the Ghost in the Shell, they have the Minister of Defense, right? He's talking about this and that, and there's diplomats and all this stuff. Well, a minister and a ministry is a clergy. So even in Japan, in this movie, Mamoru Oshii, who directed all this, I'm sure he understands this, is that Japan is a corporation and it's an ecclesiastical outfit, and so the Ghost in the Shell is the same thing. It's all based on that. And if you think this is a stretch, when Adam and I found out about this, we just were blown away that the Securities and Exchange Commission, you can look up a company, and we typed in the word Japan. I highlighted it here. Now we can find that Japan is a corporation on the Securities Exchange Commission, and there's the legitimate information about it. This is not a joke, folks. This is the real thing. So when you're watching Ghost in the Shell and you think about how these masters artists and the master director and writers, this is the psychology of these people, and they understand the game. And even the Rockefellers, they're the ones who help purchase the land and donate the land to buy it to create the UN. And the UN's headquarters is in the U.S. And the U.S. is a member of the UN, so that makes the U.S. automatically subjugated to the UN. So we're underneath. If you're a U.S. corporate citizen, your real parent company is the United Nations, and then the real parent company is the Vatican. And the Rockefellers helped build this whole infrastructure. What do you think, Adam?
I don't like them very much.
Well, this is just to help build an understanding. So when we go through this whole movie, you're going to say, well, you can't just make a claim that it's the UN and the Vatican unless you start showing it. We know this.
Absolutely, yeah. And with the UN, it's people, I don't want to get too political here, but real quickly, people think of the UN as, this governing body with the world comes together. The UN is everywhere. They have Planned Parenthood has a division, UNICEF. I mean, it goes on and on that they have their fingers in every single pie.
That's right. And it's not just one shade of blue. Everybody say, no, there's only one color UN. There's 11 shades. And here it is. It's not Adam or Jeffrey. This is from the UN itself. And if you think that in America, that the National Security Agency is an American outfit, it's actually a United Nations outfit. It hires American citizens. It's sort of like if you had Hanka Robotics, they have employees there. They might hire Japanese people, but it's not owned by Japanese. So it's the same thing with the National Security Agency. It's actually a United Nations outfit that hires U.S. citizens, Americans, men and women, and they do protect. They have protective capabilities, but ultimately it's a UN outfit. I was always really surprised to see that color for the national security sign outside their main building. I mean, I don't know if you're surprised, but I was.
Oh, absolutely. No, and what is that, a coincidence?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
finally we got through a little bit of the history part, the sort of the breakdown. So when we break down this movie together, you'll have the underpinnings that Adam and I have, and we can have more fun with the breakdown. Adam, do you remember this part? Did you want to talk about it, or?
Yeah, it was definitely intriguing. This sort of this scene that takes place. The very beginning, it's surrounded with this action scene where she drops off the building, and it's that classic moment from the animation, which is great that they stuck to the most of the original animation. But this part here was, very interesting. It took me a few times to watch this to figure out what it all meant, but it was because I get creeped out by geishas, okay? So I don't know what it is, but then all of a sudden you have these robotic geishas. So that was even like they're pretty creepy. So the scene, on one hand, they're telling you something, but they're kind of creeping you out and distracting you with some action and whatnot. But it's pretty fascinating. Let's show the viewers what happens.
Yeah, I think this is the CEO of the Hanka Robotics in some sort of meeting, and he has enhanced himself, as we've been talking about, and he's decided he's going to transfer data through his thumb port here that he can put his thumb in, and his cybernetic implant in his body. He's transferring data to the person he's talking to digitally, and so he gets to experience what his cybernetic connection, which, I would never want to have something on the side of my head like that, having my brain operated on. But they make it look like it's a pleasant, it's very acceptable, and it's just the way to go. But in real life, we have Neuralink. And for those of you who don't know what Neuralink is, if you ever heard of Elon Musk has been talking about how AI could be dangerous and it could overtake us and we'll be pets. It'll be so smart it won't even be willing to talk to us. Like you trying to have a conversation with your cat or your dog, it's pointless. You can love and appreciate your pets, but to have any meaningful conversation is just not worth it. Well, this is what Elon Musk is talking about. When his company, he launched Neuralink, he actually just recently did a presentation where they're going to finally launch in malls. I think it's next year, where you have an implant for those who want to opt in for this. Yeah.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah.
It's going to be that cheap, eh?
Well, I don't know how much it's going to cost, but he's saying that there's going to be a hole in the back of the head or in the side of the head. And it's a legitimate operation. Supposedly it's safe and all this stuff. It's microfilaments. It's a robot that puts the filaments into your brain, and it'll connect you to the AI. This is version 1, as he calls it. Me personally, I ain't going for it. I'd have to see something completely different. And I don't really want to have a brain operation, but there's a lot of people out there. That's the whole point of this movie, is to open the mind up to these concepts, so that once you've heard of it 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100 times, it's like whatever. And so now when he comes out and says we have a brain implant, nobody's shocked, or very few people are shocked. Is this something that people should be worried about, to put an AI interface in your brain? This is a real point connection that they're talked about in this 2017 movie, but it came back out in the 90s. This is the part I think where the major is like trying to do an analysis. She's like ready to take orders from her boss, and the boss says, yeah, find out what's happening in that meeting where those two guys are talking to each other. And she's like on the rooftop. In the anime is where she jumps down, she becomes camouflage. They don't do that in this version. But she mentions there's like this big data box here. And I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about this data box and all that? I think it might be 5G. What do you think?
It's interesting because she mentions something about, she actually mentions the box. So it's not just a throw away. It's in there very specifically. It's very quick and you won't pick up on it, but there it is. They show it in the visuals, and also the character Major, she mentions the box and she says, let's find out who has, such a sophisticated device.
Yeah, and I was making a leap. This is sort of like an educated guess that 5G, because they kept saying you can download a full length movie in like a second or two. Well, if you have 5G rolled out all over the world, interesting how there's UN Blue there.
Yeah, I know, right?
And it's just connecting everything. There's a grid everywhere, sort of like the UN logo on the flag. It's just a grid over everything.
Looks
And
like
it
Tron.
might be, yeah, like a digital electronic prison grid or something like that. But that might be what 5G does, is that the connection rate is so fast that now if you do have a brain chip in your brain, that it can handle the speed of the brain, and the AI can communicate much better. 4G, your cell phone, that's ridiculous. Everybody in their right mind knows that's not going to work. But with 5G and moving forward to 6G and 7G, this might be the opening of the floodgates to have this data speed transfers. And then, in this dystopian movie where everybody's surveilled and everybody's connected and everybody's being watched, here in the real world, here's an article where a professor says total surveillance is the only way to save humanity. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you think about this, but I think this is like over the top.
Could you get any more Orwellian? Total surveillance is the only way to literally save humanity. I mean, come on. You would think food security would be a pretty good way to save humanity. But no, it's total and utter surveillance. So this is what's coming.
Yeah, got that right. And here's another, just in case you thought it was a one-off with the national security sign outside, here's another UN blue sign. It covers 3 entities: Cyber Command, National Security. And so when you think about the Department of Defense and Section 9, Section 6, and all this, and the Ghost in the Shell, they have different sections. Well, here's an example of how they might do it in real life. And it is the UN that would be considered, instead of the Japanese government that works in conjunction with Hanka Robotics, that creates military operatives like the Major and Bateau. We have the UN National Security Agency, Cyber Command, and everything that can do approximately the same thing. They even have people out there. This is just one of many, many examples of people who understand, who are experts, or project that knowledge of expertise on surveillance capitalism, because that's what we really are today, and that's what Ghost in the Shell tells me personally. Is that's what they're talking about, surveillance capitalism. There is no privacy. You want all these benefits and technological enhancements. It comes at a price. You will never have any privacy. Nothing will be your own private and you get to keep it to yourself. And so there are even discussions about this all over the place. I mean, even
in the movie, she literally mentions that I guess privacy is only for humans. That's what she says.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And so here's the thing, and if you take the movie and you look at the real connection side, employee privacy in the U.S. is at stake as corporate surveillance technology monitors workers' every move. Oh my goodness. Here's a company, I think it's from Boston. It's called Humanize. Look at that interesting color for the logo, UN Blue. How magically coincidental. And here's another form of an advertisement talking about Humanize. But what is this Humanize stuff? Well, it's a badge that you put. How all those employees will have an ID badge to log into the door, to get into the door of the office. Well, that's not just. It's no longer the case. It just gets you in the door. This one records everything, where you are, how long you're in the bathroom. It can even tell your posture, if you're slouched over in your chair. Like if you fell asleep or something, maybe you have one of those jobs like Homer Simpson, you fall asleep at your chair waiting for your shift to end. Well, this will know everything. If you're in a conversation with 5 people, it'll find out who's running the conversation, who's the alpha male or alpha person of the conversation. It knows everything, and it has statistics on everything. If you went over your break by 1 minute, it charts it all out. What you said, the tone of what you said, the tone of voice that you use. If you're stressed, it can tell. This is out of your ID worker's badge. It's called Humanize. It was on the news here. I took a picture of this being on the news so that people can say, oh my gosh, this is actually legit. This is on the news. And it's connected to, this logo is so creepy to me, Blue Vision, with it looks like an eye,
Right.
like a spooky eye.
And you know what? The eye is, it's like angry.
Yeah. It
If
looks
you
like
just
it's
put a
like
circle, a red circle in the middle, you'd have like a very angry eye. But of course, it's crystal blue.
Right. And so that's why I spend so much time with Adam and I. We're talking about the UN being the corporation that's managing all the nation states around the world. Is this 2017 version of Ghost in the Shell is to try to help soften the psychology for people who don't know anything about all of these topics. This is the real deal, what Adam and I are talking about. This is the real deal. It's part of a global corporation and a global network. And, if you think, well, here's the corporation on LinkedIn, and they're connected to even more corporations. And it's a huge network. I'm not going to go into it. We're talking about Ghost in the Shell. We're not talking about the UN. But I just want you to see how significant this material is. Even the AI is in the air. There's another company called Mist. That's for another show. We'll do that another time.
AI is in the air. Oh, isn't that nice?
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And so back to the movie. So when the Major is being ordered by her boss to scan the building to find the people, the targets, she can see through walls. She can see down hallways. She can see everybody everywhere. And her boss is guiding her to not waste time, because time is precious on these military operations. Check on this floor. Go to this banquet room and check for this. Okay, yes, sir. And finds the person, the target of choice. And you can see through walls. You can see everything. Of course, in the movie, the resolution is low, but 5G actually produces this kind of imagery similar to this, not identical because it's Hollywood, but it's a similar image, digital outline of everything. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. And if you think it's just 5G, there's even Wi-Fi is being used right now. MIT, they can see through the walls.
Yep.
The police are using legitimate gear to be able to see through walls right now using Wi-Fi. What do you think about this part here, Adam?
It's important to point out that this movie takes place in 2029. And so,
yes.
Yeah, that's not far off from where we're at. Not that I'm saying, every movie, whatever year it takes place in, means that it's going to exactly happen that way. But it's, 1 year before UN Agenda 2030. It's right along the timeline for a lot of their transhumanism agenda. And what was the last slide that you were? Right. So in 10 years, it's 2019 today. In 10 years, take this technology, this walkie-talkie looking thing, and just you had stick figures that it looked, but add 10 years, and all of a sudden, boom, it'll be 40 times more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, it'll be much more high resolution. It won't be like this.
What is it? The foundation is laid.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you brought up 2029, because I think Ray Kurzweil, some sort of futurist, and he's talking about the singularity is coming in 2029. So the UN has an Agenda 2030 saying it's the first year past the singularity. So it's a very interesting point that you brought up, Adam, about the year 2029. I'm really happy you brought that up. Speaking of these 2029 smart cities and Agenda 2030, here's an example of a Saudi prince. He's planning a city with human gene editing and artificial rain. This is not science fiction, guys. This is the real deal. And in these cities, and they're going to be redesigning life. It's really something. Synthetic biology, the promise of synthetic biology. Again, in the movie, we have the Major and Bateau and everybody. They're all products. They're all contract military operatives that are owned by Henker Robotics. And so if that's the case, then maybe the civilians will be gene edited as well. And they may even link up your genetics and the data connection, cybernetics, and they may say you're worth X amount. They may even connect your genes to income. If you have these genetics, you're only worth so much. Sort of like that social credit system that's in China that's going to be rolled out for 1.4 billion in China. It's going to be rolled out for the entire world through the UN and blessed by the Vatican. And synthetic biology is going to be the science that's going to help really move that forward. I think you found this, Adam, in the movie. This scene here. Tell us more about it.
There's a few kind of very quick and subtle but creepy parts as they kind of, pan through the city of the future. There's these holograms everywhere, but there's a few little scenes that are, you got to really pay attention. And one of them was this like power glove that you could get. And then the guys in the bar are watching like UFC fighters type of thing, but it's just a hologram and all these little tiny things. But this one here was a little bit, it's fairly befitting for, the current state that Asia's in with their one-child policy and the social credit system and how unfortunately like deeply communist they are. But the takeover of the family and the control of the family unit is very important. But here we see the word built, right? So, I mean, they're building us up with not just education and programming, social conditioning and all that, but heaven knows now they're building whatever else, like synthetic biological entities, gene editing, CRISPR babies, cyber enhanced mothers and fathers. And it's just, it's like, why did they put that in there? What's the real meaning there?
Well, that's the thing. In this picture, I'm so glad that you found it. It only lasts for like 2 seconds in the movie.
Yeah.
This is difficult to pick up when you pay your $10 or $15 to see the movie. You can't pick up all this stuff. It's too fast. It's too big. It's not designed for the average person to pick it up in the movie. This is designed to impregnate the subconscious mind so that as they roll out other stuff down the road, it's easier and easier to swallow because you have images imprinted in your mind. And this is one of them. And they're going to, like this social credit system, for people who don't know what it is, everything you do outside of work, in your home, in your bedroom, with your family, your friends, your partners, it's all going to be recorded. It's not just going to be like Humanize at work where they record everything you do at work. They're going to record everything in your personal life, and they're going to give you a rating. Are you a good, cost-effective, self-sufficient, economically viable product? Because, again, countries are corporations. Hence, when we went to the Security Exchange Commission, we showed you that Japan's a corporation. The social credit system in China is going to be rolled out for the rest of the world. And so everything you do, even if you don't like something, you have different opinions, that could actually go against you. You may not be able to take a plane or travel on the bus. You may not be able to rent an apartment or send your children to private school because of the social credit system. And as they roll out synthetic biology, just like in this movie, their families, they're being built. I mean, come on. And here we go. Microsoft's building an all-in-one DNA data storage device. They're the ones who, one of the most important corporations publicly, and not privately, publicly, not military, but in the public, has helped jumpstart AI. So that Google, when they took over, it really took off. And so now they're going to store all your DNA. So that's how you're going to be able to build better families. And yeah. Oh, and you also told me about there's a segment that wasn't in the original animation that's in this 2017 version, where Bateau doesn't he doesn't have his cybernetic eyes right away. Did you want to expand on that?
I thought that was pretty charming, actually, that Bateau has this real eyes, and then there's this sort of chat that the employees of Hanka have as they're doing some investigation into this crime. And, it's a bit of a banter back and forth, and they're kind of making fun of this one guy because he doesn't have any cybernetic enhancements at all. He's 100% human, which I actually appreciate that they put that in there, so that even by 2029, although it's socially a little bit unacceptable and you will be ridiculed by your colleagues, you still have that right. But I like the Batu character in this one was very excellently done as it was in the original. I don't think it took anything away. I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. And I'm a diehard Japanimation guy, and so I understand that there might have been some. If there's anybody who watches this who's diehard Japanimation, they may not have been thrilled that they used white people as the main characters. But you know what? Hopefully, our breakdowns as your Cybomen, you're going to be able to look past that. And you can be pure and respect the Japanese culture and the honor and the integrity of these writers and directors and the culture that they developed there, being one of the most technologically advanced places on earth, and sort of overlook that part and say, look at what was accomplished. Look at the great achievements of this movie. And I think you're right, Adam, about adding this feature in here, and it is good. And he gets into an accident, and then he gets his new eyes. Interesting how the lights around his eyes are UN blue.
Coincidence, I'm sure.
What a strange magical coincidence.
Right. That's not the first time we've seen that here tonight. Yeah. So
and here in the real world, we have another company called Second Sight. And here's another magical unicorn moment where the logo has UN blue in it. This is real world, everybody. And here's the CEO, and he's talking about how even his filing cabinet in the back in the light there is baby blue. It's interesting, UN blue. And he's talking about helping people who are actually blind. And this is important. I would never degrade technology giving liberty or in helping enhance someone out of a disability or giving freedom or mobility. I'd always do that. But if it were to be used in a negative, dark way where it could take over and you lose autonomy and sovereignty and personal individualism, that's not how I would never support that. But if it liberates someone and its privacy and sovereignty and the individual dignity is respected, then fantastic. Here's a generation that they actually put an implant in the back of the head to help increase. This is people who are completely blind, to give them partial vision. It's not normal vision, it's partial.
Eventually it'll be tactical, though.
Yeah.
Or it behind closed doors, it already is tactical first.
Well, yeah. I mean, even in the text in the beginning, it says a military operative. This is all military tech. It's just they got to make their money back. How do you make your money back? Through tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of research and development. You create these corporations, and then people buy the tech that goes in the stock market. So they make all their money back on their original investments, return on investment, ROI. They even have a robotic lens here that can be controlled by simply looking around or blinking. Maybe they'll be able to scrap reading glasses. Who knows? But here, back in the movie, the animation, I think it was the Puppet Master, but here it's Kuze. Is that right, Adam? Kuze, right?
Yeah, Kuze.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting that Kuze references the fact that that's his name in this lifetime. It's almost a hint towards the AI gods. He definitely comes off like a god to me. He's got his own network. He can travel anywhere around the world. He can hack a lot of stuff. He can, has human lackeys hanging in plastic bags, and very powerful, although also twisted and broken. But, to me, I definitely picked up, there was a certain hint in his dialogue that meant, that referenced sort of a more of a godlike position for Kuze.
Yeah, the fact that he had more than one life, or he's expressing himself that way, I find that fascinating, because it opens the door to, what is the next life? What is digital reincarnation? What's that all about? But the movie doesn't explain it. It just tells you what it is from their perspective and their current life. And I wasn't sure what to think about the puppet master being translated into Kuze in this movie, but I think it was more of a humanizing process, less political, less make it look as demonic. They humanize this character a little bit more earlier on in the movie by having this. So it's just really fascinating. You even one who pointed out this site too, this frame as well, and I was really blown away by it.
Yeah. No, it's that's your Neuralink right there, isn't it?
Yeah, this guy on steroids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In the
I
real
thought it was very
world,
artistic and well done, and I appreciate this film. I think it was very well done. They tackled a major challenge, and I don't know, they pulled it off. I thought tastefully. They respected the original franchise. They altered it a little bit here and there. The music at the beginnings was cool. It paid homage to the original music. All these wires and set decoration and all the UN crystal blue colors. I wonder where they got that idea, but it's a beautiful film. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and I really want to do another shout out to the writer. I think it's Masamune. I forget his last name by heart, but
Masamune.
Yeah, that's it. And Mamoru Oshii, the director. My gosh, I mean, these and whoever else was involved with Ghost in the Shell, the original animation. I mean, unbelievable dedication, incredible intellect, artistic expression. People will poo-poo a movie very easily, and I've done it in the past too. But now, with more reflection, I think about it. This is tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to make a movie like this for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable labor and an intellectual astuteness compressed and condensed into an hour or 2 hours. This is monumental work. You can learn a lot from a movie. It's not just entertainment, and that's why we're doing this.
The budget was $110 million US.
Wow. And so people don't take that into consideration. Oh, it's just a movie. I paid 10 or 15 or whatever you paid for the movie, and it's just to entertain me. You're looking at $100 million of hard labor, people coming in, caterers, technicians, scientists, researchers, writers, directors. I mean, this is unbelievable. You can learn more in one movie. Military industrial complex, intelligence. The CIA is directly involved with Hollywood, NSA as well, FBI too. You're actually learning from them through these movies if you break them down. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this to break it down for you, to get an additional value. If you watch Ghost in the Shell after watching this, you'll never see it the same way.
No, we hope not. I know that I won't.
And speaking of the hacks, in the real world, there's hacks that are happening right now. Largest leak in history. Email data breach exposes over 2 billion personal records. Well, throughout the entire movie of Ghost in the Shell, they're talking about this person's being hacked and that person's being hacked. Well, it's happening right now. It's just we don't have the implant in our head yet. And here's another one. It came out yesterday. A massive data breach. The entire adult population. It's not 10 people. It's not some. It's everybody.
I mean, really, you could take the country out of there. But you know what I mean? You could just take Bulgaria out of there and you could say massive data breach on Earth compromises the entire adult population. That's the next step, really.
Yeah. I mean, you could have whole groups of people could collapse. You could get sick and die from a virus. I mean, your phone can turn into a brick if you don't play. If you surf the wrong stuff, you can brick your phone. You can get the Apple iPhones don't do it as much, but some Androids you can actually get a virus, and it bricks your phone. Brick meaning it's useless. It's a paperweight. You have to replace the phone. So wait till they install it into our brains or in our eyes, or maybe through pacemakers, heart pacemakers.
And we can point out too that everything can be hacked. So you got to remember that. Nothing is really secure.
Yeah. Here's another example of how nothing's secure. Capital One says over 100 million individuals in the U.S. Canada hacked. I mean, come on. You think that's not going to happen when they have Neuralinks and all the other competition comes out and everybody's getting chipped and cybernetically enhanced? You don't think this is going to happen? Come on.
That's 25% of the population of U.S. and Canada.
Yeah. And that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. Now here, this is what happens. She gets injured, of course, because she tried to save Bateau and from an explosion, and he got his cybernetic eyes, but she was really, really heavily damaged, and so she's being put on a UN bed here. There is no hospital or healing center that has a UN blue lit bed in the background.
Oh, come on! That's just it's good for healing. It's a healing color.
Oh,
that's all it is.
Okay.
You got to think of these things.
This is the thing about the UN blue is that it's what we're talking about is this kind of material. We're doing this because we're passionate cinephiles. We're pushing the envelope on all this stuff. But this is the kind of material that you're listening to for free, that people pay thousands of dollars to sit down with a consultant to say, how do I impregnate a business model into a movie where I don't actually have to put the flag, or I don't have to put in the UN representative, or how do I embed it in there? We can use colors, or we can use certain scenes where, healing centers, we use that color there. And so this is like a free ride for those, very special treat for those who are listening to this. Is our first expose. Here's her handler / repair / programming lady wearing her UN blue, not a white jacket in the hospital, UN blue color jacket, and she's deleting her actual memories, and the major doesn't realize that she's not really her friend. Yeah, you can go ahead and delete them. She gives her consent. Wow. Facebook is funding brain experiments to create a device that reads your mind. Adam didn't make this up. I didn't make this up. July 31st, that's today.
Yeah, I don't like Facebook. I don't trust them one bit. But I chose, hey, look at the UN blue light at the top. I didn't see that before. See that curve right there?
Oh, yeah.
I never noticed that until now. But there's this machine here, right? How many movies have we seen that in now? I think we should do a show just on that machine, but that'll be another time. I'll have to dig out all the different movies like Prometheus and Elysium and the whole gamut. But there's always that machine that's kind of circular and it zip zip zip. Now, what is that? What is it actually doing? It's printing material. It's spraying nanobot technology and synthetic biology just out of thin air. That's where they're going.
Yeah, it almost looks like a 3D printer, but just sort of like a smooth looking one,
Yeah, well, it 3D
human
prints. What is it? It sprays nanotechnology that becomes biological mass. So it's synthetic biology mixed in with nanotech. So how are you going to get any more high tech than that? This is it right here.
Yeah. 3D printing. And you remember that sad part where even in the animation it's the same thing. The garbage truck guy who says his daughter and his wife is giving him a hard time, and he met this really nice fellow that helped him, and he's doing all these hacks on his garbage run, and he ends up getting caught by the major and gets interrogated. He doesn't remember nothing. He doesn't know. None of his memories are real. Nothing's real. It's all artificially simulated in his mind. It's just a sad experience.
Kuze does it to him too, right? Like Kuze takes him over and then, I guess, implants a bunch of fake memories into him and then physically possesses his body. Yeah. So it goes to show you that Kuze can not only hack your brain, but he can take over your body.
Yeah.
Even a flesh-like body. But the reason why is because these garbage men have the implants in their head.
Yeah, everybody's enhanced.
Yeah. No implant, no possession.
Oh, here we go.
How
to remember to forget. The new science of erasing memories. Well, I thought that was science fiction. I thought Ghost in the Shell was science fiction. It's
that
not.
reminds
It's science fact.
Remember that Samsung technology that made you forget your TV show so you could watch it again?
Oh my God, yes.
I'll have to talk about that one later.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You hold on to that. That's a nugget. We need to talk about that down the road. Yeah, that's another example, and it's Samsung putting it out. It's the corporation that makes the technology. It's saying if you want to forget your favorite shows so that it feels fresher when you watch it again, my God. And then here's another example, but that Samsung one was really good. Scientists made mice hallucinate by shining light into their brain. Well, these neural links and fiber optics and data, electricity is a form of light. If you look at a lightning bolt come out of the sky and hit the ground, you actually see it. That's electricity. It's light. Mm-hmm. Well, they have fiber optics. Well, why can't they put light in your brain through your implant? They can make you see, hear, taste, feel, sense anything you want. But it's not just a mouse. This is what's so fascinating about Ghost in the Shell. The directors and the writers are over the top. I mean, if I could, if I had the means, I would buy them lunch and get them a beer or tea or whatever they want. I just think, my God, you're amazing to have done all this research and put this out in the 90s and get financing for this. Then they create a franchise. So these guys are real. They're cutting edge. These people. Oh, here's something that you showed me as well too, Adam. This part of the movie was really fascinating about Kuze. What did you say about it again?
Again, to me, this is the AI gods. Okay, so here we have these meager humans who are really only good for neural activity. They just sit there all day, but they're Buddhist. They're kind of like Buddhist monks or whatever. In a way, they're dressed like they're in a place of worship. You know what I mean? They've got the robes and their faces are painted and they're kneeling down, quiet, and they're like praying kind of. And what do they create out of their thoughts and their prayers? Is this neural network it's not even electronic. It's the powered by the human brain. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. They're worshiping an AI god, and through it they give it life. Right there, you go to the next slide and you can see next couple slides see that circle right there is they're in a religious pattern. The whole scene is religious as far as I'm concerned. They're worshiping an AI god right there.
And you know what's crazy about this is that, I was lucky once. I got to see a server room for a large telecommunications once, where you walk for like a few hundred yards, like a couple football fields of servers. Mm-hmm. And so you're thinking, well, that's just how it is, right? But here, the AI or the artificial life form or this Kuze, he or it, instead of having a server farm, is using humans as its server farm.
Yep.
And the other thing too is,
it's like a satanic inversion.
Yeah,
right?
and so it's just the opposite. Most people will never say, "Hey, you can use a human as a hard drive, as a RAM, as the computer module for AI." Well, that's where it's going.
Oh yeah,
and it's just mind blowing. The other thing too is that it looks like these are monks. Mindful meditation. That's like a big trendy thing in North America, where you clear your mind and you focus on your breathing. And, if you don't think of anything and you only focus on your breathing, that's like a computer that has maximum RAM, solid state, and you're not surfing the web. It's just like perfect vessel to use for networking power because you're not thinking of anything. So they use Buddhist monks who clear their mind and clear their conscience of all cluttering thoughts of maybe intimacy or stress or worry, and they remove all that so it frees the mind up. So even Kuze was very smart to pick these people. And I've done exercises of meditation. I've done 10 days where you don't look at anybody, you don't talk to anybody. It's called Vipassana. and you can't get more intense than that unless you are in Tibet. And most people can't handle it. It's 10 days that you eat vegetarian or vegan, and you don't look or talk to anybody for the entire time except for the person who runs the meditation. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything. There's no real indoctrination. It's just a lot of exercise where you clear your mind of all your stresses. Well, here, guess what? Kuze, the puppet master, he knows who to pick to make his own network. People who have, cleared their mind so that he can get the maximum computing power out of them.
Right.
Just unbelievable.
The thing is, these people are slaves. They're not here voluntarily because I don't think we got a snapshot of it. We might, but it was very subtle, but they showed it. It's like these people, when they're not doing, powering the AI network, they're hanging in a bag. Like, they might be discarded or something. It's hard to tell. You can't tell what's going on in the movie because it's very subtle. But these monks here, when they're not working or, being a slave, they like are hanging in a plastic bag. It's really quite disturbing, actually.
Got that right. Good thing we're doing a movie review here. So this. And she gets captured by Kuze and gets jacked in to his network.
It's very Christ-like. It's religious. Again, it's very religious.
Well, why do you think? While we're talking about the Vatican approving and allowing the UN to be the master corporation to manage all the subservient corporations like Japan and Canada and all the others around the world. I mean, this is hardcore stuff.
People don't believe it, but, I
want to hear what you have to say because I know this is a significant scene. Tell me what you see.
Right. So this is the first movie that I've done a review like this on. And so I went through, did the work and, paused it a bunch of times and tracked back and forth to take certain screenshots. And I was taking a bunch of screenshots. And I think this scene is beautiful, yet macabre, very symbolic scene. To me, right away, I see sort of a portrait of Dorian Gray thing going on here. You have the one eye, right? He's looking at, he pulls off one of her eyes, and so you have that eyeball symbolism. And the scene is, to me, I like it. And so this being the fourth time around that I've seen the movie, I've taken screenshots. And I took this screenshot, and I was, managing and transferring some of the files around, and I didn't notice this until after quite some time. But look at the skin on his hand, because there you will see upside down, or like a closed eyelid, or maybe it's a sun, but it's an eye. So this scene right here is not just about her eye. It is about the eye, the all-seeing eye. It's right there.
Like in the dollar bill.
Who would have ever seen on this skin right there? Because it's very artistic, sophisticated scene, right? And it's very intriguing, and just there's a lot to visually take in here. But there's that upside down eye right there on his hand. Didn't notice that until 5 or 6 times seeing this image. So really was subtle.
Yeah, and I have to extend thanks to you, Adam. I know the listeners will probably feel the same way, the viewers, because this is a fifth of a second. It's not like you're watching the movie. Oh, there it is. This is like subliminal.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you have to be like, eagle eye, like, precision to be able to find this kind of symbology. So I really appreciate you bringing this to the table amongst all the other things. But I really enjoyed this one.
It sure came as a surprise to me.
Yeah, and when I say that I appreciate all this, I appreciate movies, and I appreciate the hard work of the artistry, the writers, the directors. But if I look at it in the real world, this is scary stuff, and it's not something I would, I'm going for. Like, hey, I can't wait till people's faces can be till we're all mechanized. This is going to change everything on every level, and humanity may not survive this transition, or maybe the bulk of humanity may not survive this transition. It may not, and this movie sure helps open the mind up to that possibility. Here they go. They thought that they would be a part of that we would be part of their evolution. I think this is exactly what you mentioned before we were speaking. That
This
there's huh?
This is it. This is the crux of AI transhumanism right here. Human evolution. That's what we're being told. We're being sold. Is that AI is going to be good for humanity because we're going to take over evolution from Mother Nature, because up to this point it's been horrible and cruel, and then all the resource depletion and all the bull crap about how bad humans are and how great it's going to be once we can finally hand over evolution to the human beings. But guess what? According to Ghost in the Shell, it doesn't turn out so well, just to say the least.
Yeah, sure doesn't. And here's the boss man who could care less. Looks like you can't tell, but it appears possibly he's 100% human. And he just sees the Major as a product and as a contract. And he says it in this movie. He says she's just a product and she's just a contract, and I want her gone. I want her gone. Take her out. Take her down. And so the lab technician is in the process of, after she freed herself from Cozy being jacked into his network, she got away. They do sort of a maintenance checkup, and they say, no, we don't want her anymore. Cancel this contract. Get rid of this product. And she doesn't consent to the deletion of her data because she now knows what's happening. She now understands what's been done to her. Her body was sacrificed. Her brain was extracted, and she was put into this synthetic shell, and all her memories of her biological life were destroyed without her consent, without her permission. And she finally wakes up to the whole thing. She says, I don't want this anymore.
You know what it is, right, too? So it's interesting because she's told to take this drug so that her mind won't reject her body. But
right.
Kuze opens her eyes to the fact that they're lying to her. And so they have these drugs that will, change your thoughts and your memories, and they do it all through some drugs and stuff too. So I thought that was really interesting. And then what does the doctor say? Although she is an ally, but she says while she's doing this procedure that we never needed your consent in the first place.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
so it
right.
don't matter.
Just like Child Protective Services, they don't actually need the consent of the biological mother and father to take the children. They don't need consent at all. They can come into the house, and they don't really have to do anything. They just, other than show up and take the child. Now, I'm not saying that's what CPS does, but legally, that's what it is. I'm not saying that's what CPS. They don't. If there are some abuses or poor behavior, that's a separate story. But I'm saying legally, that's where they get their power, because there's a law. It's a Latin law. It's called Parens Patriae, Parens Patriae, Patriea. I think it's Latin. Basically, it says that the government's your parent. That's where you get the legal guardian. You're not the father and the mother. You're the guardian. You get custody. That's a legal term. You get custody. Just like you have custody of the car, you have custody of the house, you have custody of your land. You have the chain of custody of your title to the car. Well, they have the chain of custody and the title to you. And so people don't understand that, so that if parents are misbehaving and mistreating their children, CPS can come in and protect the child. In the best of circumstances, that's what CPS is supposed to do. But legally, they can come in. They don't need consent from nobody. The police doesn't need consent. CIA, nobody needs consent, or anybody on any country on earth to take anything away from you. And just like if you own a house, you'll look at your mortgage. You'll say that it says you're a renter. Even at the bottom of your mortgage, even when you pay off your house, you still don't own it. They have full control over everything. Don't pay your property. You pay off your house. You pay your Don't pay your property taxes 1 year. You lost everything. Why? Because they owned it in the first place. They don't need your consent. So you're 100% right, Adam. But now it's not just the house or your car or your boat. It's not your children, and hopefully the government uses their powers correctly. But now it's with your body and your mind. And so this is what's crazy. And so moving on, I think you're also talked about this. Tell us
I
more
took
about
this shot because I was mostly intrigued by the word Avalon. And I must confess my ignorance, but I'm not sure what the etymology of the word Avalon is. And of course, I think I tossed a question at you, and I thought, Jeffrey, what do you make of this whole 1912 number here?
Well, you know what? I am going to profess my ignorance as well about Avalon. I know that the alternative, there's like some sort of alternative truth movement out there, and one of the people who chose the name of his program is called Project Avalon. So there is a significance, there is a meaning to that word. I just don't have the knowledge today to share it with you. But your question was really good about the 1912. You know what? This is an entertainment guess. This is not based on, this is speculation what I'm about to say. But in 1913 is the first year that the Federal Reserve of the United States was launched. It's a private banking cartel that took over America. The United States is a corporation. The U.S. was incorporated in 1871, and after the Civil War, and they had the year before this takeover. The U.S. was lost a long time ago, but in 1912, financially, it was taken over, and the key to everything was in 1913. And so my suspicion is it's like a little game that they're playing. They're showing the year before, 1912. And it could just be a simple oddity. But intelligence and military, they think of every detail on everything. This movie is so detailed.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Well, I just, it's interesting that the 1912 is the year before the 1913 because 2029 is the year before 2030.
That's right.
But I looked up Avalon really quickly. So Avalon literally meaning the Isle of Fruit or Apple Trees. So, I mean, could have something to do with like Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah, it could. It's sort of like it's very fascinating. This is the best part about what we do with Cybomen is that we're able to break down stuff not only before but in real time. And thanks for that extra tip there. Again, there's meanings to everything. Some would say, it's just a key to an apartment. No. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you don't make a prop and then, turn around your cameras and point it at it and take shots of it if it's not in there for a reason.
Yeah.
But this next part is very cool.
And this is the part of the movie that you also brought up that you said wasn't in the original anime in 1995 where Major goes to see her mother. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, so this kind of, to me, touches on the whole idea about how people were whinging about the characters being white. But really, at the end of the day, they were captured as Japanese children, and they were putting into this body, which happens to be white-skinned or fair-skinned, you could say, but it's completely synthetic, right? Like, if you think these characters are white, you're not paying attention to the movie. They're white in real life, but in the movie, they're synthetic. But this scene here is, to me, the most horrible scene of all. Because this child that they captured and stole her brain, murdered her body, and then lied to her and uploaded her brain into this synthetic machine. Go to the next slide. She used to write manifestos about how technology was going to destroy the world. So she was a dissident against Hanka Robotics. So what did Hanka Robotics do? They could have picked anyone to stick the brain into that body, but instead they captured a dissident and basically put them in hell, right? Because if you're a person and you are very afraid of technology and you believe it's going to destroy the world, and then someone captures you and puts your brain into a machine, that's like the worst thing you would ever want. And so I equate this to the excommunication, right? It's like the Vatican Church, they will flay your soul in hell for eternity and deny you access to God if you don't do what they bloody well say. And this is it, same thing. It's like, I'm going to capture you and put you in a machine if you don't like the machines. Well, I don't like the machines. So what are you going to do? Come and get me and put me into one? Well, how much worse? Just the most horrible thing you could ever imagine. I never saw it like this, but I started to think about the movie consciously, on a conscious level. Every single scene, taking it apart. And by the way, this has been a long podcast, but that's because every single scene in this film is telling us something. This isn't one of those half-assed movies. No. This is a whole-ass movie, right down to the very last minute.
Yeah.
So I was disgusted by this when I thought about it, because that's maybe, you know what I mean? The digital gulag. They're not going to put you in a cage with a fence. They're going to put you in a cage with your brain into a side of a robotic body, and you're going to become property of Hanka, and brutal. Just brutal.
Yeah. And world communism, which is basically the UN's model for the human biological entities on Earth, men and women and children, the families of the world. Doesn't matter what race or what background you're from. It is communism. And so they even use the word manifestos in here.
Wow.
Manifesto is a term that most people in the Western world will associate with the communist man. They'll hear, "Oh yeah, communist manifesto." Right. But see, here's the thing: one of the biggest advantages of this podcast and the analysis that Adam and I are providing is this is ultra high level. If you're I wouldn't recommend this for young children. This is for adults, and this is for the most diehard cinephile there is out there. You're going to say, wow. Hopefully there's going to be at least one mind blower in every analysis that Adam brings to the table and that I bring to the table. And so we're seeing an example of world communism in the script by an Asian. In China, it's the century of China, everybody. Yeah. That's what we're all hearing in our schools. And in communism, you're talking about excommunication. The state is God, not like the God where out in in heaven and all that stuff. Yeah. It's really the state is the God. And it's just fascinating. And here's another scene too that I really felt it was important to.
You blew me away with this one.
Yeah. Most people.
I knew it meant something though before because I was analyzing this movie scene by scene. When I came to this scene, I was looking at this piece of footage, and I'm like, Adam, come on, you can do it. What is this? It means something. And I just was like, the best part was coming up. I'm just gonna keep going, and I couldn't do it. But Jeffrey, man, you found something here, so this is great.
For those of you who've ever seen the movie Avatar, in the movie Avatar, there's a giant sacred tree that is the center of all life for those blue people in that planet Avatar. And it's like their tree of life. All the memories, all the generations being transmitted through that central tree. And it's like the linchpin of their entire society. Well, in this movie, Ghost in the Shell, 2017 version, Kuze, or in the animation, the Puppet Master, who wants to free himself because he was abused and he's fighting back, he's defending himself, but he appears like a big bad guy throughout the movie. Here in this version, he is found by the Major at this tree. He's up on this tree, and she's like, I can't believe this is real. And I was thinking about, well, wait a minute, the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is something that everybody should look into. And so they don't just have a tree in a mechanized, robotic, cybernetic, militarized world. How come there's a tree in there? Well, the symbol, in my humble opinion, is the Tree of Life. And so you can see here another example of this Tree of Life where the guy who's commanding that spider tank that basically almost destroys the Kuze and the Major, this Tree of Life is here. And strangely enough, the Chinese Huahua media is also using the Tree of Life. Okay, and it means a lot of things. Yeah, and so this is the kind of stuff that hopefully will make you come back and listen to all our reviews, and discover things that no cinematic university will ever present, and that no book, readily available book that's quick to find. You won't find this kind of information. This analysis is unique, and that's why we're doing this. But here, the Tree of Life is another example. You can look it up. It's basically world's mythologies, the sacred tree, religious and philosophical traditions. It's all throughout the world and all kinds of different faiths around the world. It's not just the Kabbalah. It's not just Buddhism. It's in Christianity. It's everywhere. And so they're trying to save their lives in this segment. And
well,
so
it's interesting because it's the Tree of Life, and what happens underneath the Tree of Life. Kuze dies, but he actually goes into a new life, right? There's that, again, the death of the body, but the upload of the brain underneath the Tree of Life. Oh, yeah, man, they did it up on this movie real good.
Sure did.
Yeah,
they even did a good job here in reproducing, like in the animation where she loses her arm trying to save Kuze with the spider tank by taking the top off.
Yes,
she breaks her arm off and her basically destroys her synthetic body. But here in the real world, there are bionic hands that can actually help amputees feel again. And what do you mean by feel? They even have specific operations where if someone loses a limb, certain corporations today, if you notice, the media uses UN Blue with the hyperlinks. How interesting. That they will go to the amputation, open it up, and operate on the nerve endings so that they are receptive to the artificial limb. And then they'll connect the nerve endings to the artificial limb somehow, either through a direct attachment or through wireless connection. And so your brain will actually feel the arm. So it's not just those old prosthetics that you and I saw in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s where someone just folded the arm out. There's nothing inside. It's just an empty plastic arm. This is the real deal where they're actually connecting the nerve endings through wireless and to brainwave activity and everything. And here's a situation where a gentleman, it's unfortunately lost both arms. It's always sad to see these situations. But he had this operation too. So if you want to learn more about how real this stuff is, everybody's it's just one of those movies. I paid $10 or I don't know. We're reaching out to the upper crust of movie reviewers out there, and we love you, and we appreciate that the fact that you like movies just as much as we do, and we hope that you see incredible value in what Adam has been able to unearth and prepare and present to you, and some of the materials that I've been able to unearth as well. And one of the final scenes here, did you want to say something too?
Yeah, I just wanted to show that one of the things they say in this movie is that we cling to memories as if they define us, but they really don't. What we do is what defines us. So to me, that's classic Hollywood programming about how, what you do makes everything in life, not the memories or the experiences that you have. It's just one of those sort of like mind programming thing. Because the fact of the matter is, memories are stored in DNA. I should have found the article, but there's articles about that. Actually, memories are passed down through DNA. It's what creates cultures. It's what creates differences in thought patterns, and memories absolutely define us way more than what we do in life. So that kind of Hollywood programming, they're always twisting and inverting everything. There's a satanic element to it, but we probably should finish up here, but I'll just pass that back to you there, Jeffrey.
Couldn't agree more. This is all programmed. Most people don't understand that hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent through the UN through the National Science Foundation, and MIT is a big one. MIT has a triple dome on top. You'll say triple dome when you're talking about. Go look at the MIT building. There's a triple dome. Go look at the Capitol building in the United States. You'll see there's a triple dome on the Capitol building. That triple dome is a symbolic representation of the triple crown of the Vatican, the Pope wears, that he owns basically the world. He owns the biggest kingdoms in the world, and he has the triple crown. And it's not just a horse race in Kentucky. This is the real deal. And so when you start looking at the deep hidden symbology of all this stuff, you're going to be in for a treat with our future reviews from Adam and myself. As a parting note, I would say there's one technology that for some reason in the animation it was at the beginning and here it's at the end, where the Major has thermo-optic camouflage, or she can become invisible. And in real life, it already exists. Here's an example of a gentleman in China who has this cloth that if he turns around, you won't see him anymore. There are drones in the military that have this technology where they're technically, you can't see them. So imagine a camera, a screen, a television screen projecting light, like your movie or TV show, but instead it's projecting what the camera is on top. So if you're looking up in the sky and you're looking to see if there's a drone, and you look up at the drone and you don't see anything, the reason why you don't see it is this camouflage, is that there are cameras on top of the drone, and it's recording everything and it's projecting it through the camera pixels underneath the drone, so you see what's above the drone, so you don't see the drone. It makes it invisible. It's like taking the feed from the cameras on the top, pointing up, and feeding it to the cameras pointing down so that you can't see it. So there are drones and planes that are doing this. There's clothing that does this. I mean, this is really something else. So that's pretty much it. And the UN, as a final note, for those of you who say, well, you have to use color, and I don't know where you're getting this color stuff from, this UN blue. Let's take a quick look of some stuff that maybe you didn't see in the movie, because it only lasts for 1 or 2 seconds per scene.
Yeah,
if
even
you see
I missed this one.
those two twins wearing UN blue. This is legitimate CIA, NSA programming, UN Rockefeller stuff. Here's another one where she's in a laboratory getting her 3D printing on her hand to be repaired. There are no hospitals or laboratories that have UN blue lights everywhere and the gown is UN blue. That just doesn't exist in today's world. That's all programming. When she goes and does a deep dive to find Kuze, her digital, in the digital world of the deep dive, she sees a place called Sound Business. When you do advertising and marketing, you're taking the word sound business and you're giving it the right color. It impregnates the subconscious mind so that in the future, you always see a positive light for the UN. It's helping save refugees, migrants. It's food, food aid, water security, helping the world. So they use the impregnation of subliminal programming, and they use the colors as well. Sound business. And even when she leaves the deep dive, you'd say, oh, that was just a digital thing. But in the real scenario in the movie, she ends up at the bar. And by the way, this is a Yakuza bar. The Japanese government is corporations, the government, and the Yakuza. The Yakuza is the part of the government. People don't really know that. And they buy out. I think the Yakuza bought the Bank of America many years ago. I don't know if they still own it or not. But they ended up going to the Sound Business bar in reality. It wasn't just a digital point of view. It's in UN blue. And when she goes for her checkups, it's UN blue. There are no beds that have a blue light underneath you. And in the bar, here's hidden symbolism of the color. Here's another one. It just keeps going and going and going. And you say, well, you're just cherry picking this. But when you have been watching movies as long as Adam has and I have, and we've done our homework, and you're going into a realm that's this this is, you pay thousands of dollars to get consultations like this. We're bringing this to you for free because we love movies. We appreciate the people who put it together, and Adam is sensational. And what car has baby blue in the inside? Zero. Nobody has a baby blue in their lining
I'd like
of
to
a
have
car.
a baby blue car. That'd be awesome. I think that's a nice color.
That's funny. That's really funny. And so they just pepper it around. They just put it in different locations.
Oh yeah.
And I think as a parting note, I want to thank Mamoru Oshii again, and the writer. I forget his name again. I just keep skipping my mind.
Shirow Masamune.
Oh yes, thank you so much. Of course, everybody else who's involved in this project to make an outstanding cult classic, life-transforming cinematic entertainment piece that is just over the top. Thumbs up. Thank you, Mamoru Oshii. He's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award here at a film festival in Montreal, Canada. And he earned it. Well, he sure earned it. So, and just want to sort of sign off with that shout out. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off, Adam?
I would like to say Onegaishimasu to Oshii as well. Yep. He made a cult classic. 25 years later, we're still talking about it. Excellent film overall. I know we reviewed the remake, but I think they just took the remake and just decided to really inject it with modern day UN global governance, transhumanist agenda, and it's just a great film and very telling of things that are going to happen in the future. So, yeah, thanks for joining us on our review and class about Ghost in the Shell. Subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, the thumbs up button. By the time people watch this, there probably won't even be a thumbs up button anymore, but it is what it is. Thanks, Jeffrey, and we'll do another one. We got a plan for our next movie.
That's great. I'm looking forward to have a good time, and hope everybody who's watched this, when you watch this movie again, think of us, because we love movies, and we hope that you get to see this movie with whole new eyes.
All right. So thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you, and take care. Have a great one, guys.
Okay. Signing off. Bye for now.
Bye.